So it is an immense pleasure now to actually give a floor to our honorable guest, dear colleague and friend, Ravi Chaudhry. His career has been really impressive, and he's been able to look at society, organizations, and human behavior from many different angles, from many different layers. So that's what inspired me to invite him as a guest speaker at this opening session. But not only that, he provoked the professional realm with a very interesting book titled Capitalism to Peopleism. I mean, how provocative can you be than this? And I had the pleasure of reading the book, electronic version. And I have to say that I've been challenged many times. So before I start raising the questions, dear Ravi, I will let you to tell your story, to make the introduction, and then we'll engage in a dialogue. And hopefully our guests will respond and they will join us in this dialogue afterwards. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Violetta, for the kind words. And I have always been a great admirer of your sterling initiatives. And now that I have seen what Mar, Andrea, and Lev are doing for their pioneering initiatives, I feel honored to be here today talking to you all and to a wonderful group of people that care more about others than themselves. I love your laudable vision to deliver solutions for the humanity to thrive. Human history is the story of the progress of civilization. And I look upon civilizational advance as a trajectory. It doesn't always go up. It goes down also when it results in deterioration of lives and livelihoods. We are going through one such moment. That was the crisp message you delivered, Violetta, in your opening comments. Your vision of eco-civilization is fundamentally aimed at recreating a new trajectory of progress. And I genuinely feel that this book, which we have together discussed many times, is specifically written to provide a credible framework and a conceptual basis to achieve your goals. Now, this is a non-fiction book, but it has three main actors: the leaders in business and politics, the world we live in, and we the people. We look at these actors and also the supporting cast that is trying to transform the three actors. First, the leader. While I answer the questions, Violetta, which you raised, I'll also raise a few more questions so that we can put together a conceptual framework for the year ahead. Now, what is the single biggest leadership challenge today? There are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. COVID, inflation, Ukraine, Gaza, inequality, climate risks, artificial intelligence, and now unpredictable geopolitics. They are incredibly unknowing. Virtually everything around us has changed, but our past beliefs and prejudices still stay with us. We thought we know the answers to all the questions, little realizing that every question has changed. We think we are learning, yet we don't change. Let me share this ordinary experience I relate very often. I made myself a cup of coffee a little while ago and added a little sugar. But when I sipped it, it wasn't sweet. Since I didn't stir the coffee, the sugar didn't get absorbed. Likewise, change happens only when the learning is absorbed. What one knows becomes an impediment in being open to what one doesn't know. Most of our leaders are unknowingly locked up in the echo chambers of like-minded colleagues. Therefore, the biggest leadership challenge today is the inability to understand the reality, which means inability to ask the right questions, which results in inability to make the right choices. All of us as change seekers need to keep this in mind, that our key challenge is to help them see the reality. Now, what's the state of the world we live in? Almost everywhere, the ways of doing business and governing nations are dysfunctional. We have more wealth and advanced technologies than ever before. Yet 70% of global population holds only 3% of wealth, while the top 1% own over half the wealth. This is not just inequality. It is an economic apartheid, a systemic suppression of human flourishing on a global scale. We treat nature as a freely expendable resource and keep plundering it. It's not just indifference, it's a proactive complicity in what is perhaps humanity's greatest self-inflicted wound. Arctic is melting. There will be no summer ice within a decade. Sea levels are rising by 3.7 mm a year. It will start displacing millions of people, hundreds of millions from coastal cities. We'll have more hurricanes, wildfires, and floods. Ocean acidification, absorbing 30% of carbon dioxide emissions, endanger the entire marine ecosystem. The sixth mass extinction is underway, with species disappearing at a rate 1,000 times faster than before. And pollution causes 8.7 million premature deaths, making cities unlivable. Catastrophe is writ large. Yet, our leaders are shackled by outdated beliefs and steered by compasses that have lost their true north. In the last 25 years, not a single global problem has been resolved, and new ones keep coming up. Democracy has become a government of the elite, by the elite, and for the elite. Now, where does it leave the third actor, we the people? 9% of us globally live in extreme poverty. More than 2 billion don't have access to clean water at home. More than 20% of Earth population lacks adequate housing. Close to 1 million people are homeless every night in European Union and UK. And no less, even in USA, 800,000 people have no homes. And 35 people die every day in USA because of that. Youth all over the world are worried that they will not have the standard of living their parents had. The situation is dismal. How does the world functions? Let's explore. Every human endeavor has three equally vital components: capital, people, and nature. Today, capital dominates, and people and nature are helplessly subservient to owners of capital. Now, it's undeniable that capitalists, that mean owners of capital, play an important entrepreneurial role. Worthy capitalists are a nation's asset. 90% of them who run small and medium businesses are the lifeline of an economy and prime source of creating employment. Most of them don't abuse the system. We need them. But there are unworthy capitalists who use the power of money to influence governments to do their bidding and tacitly control media, regulators, and even the judiciary. Now, if unworthy capitalists can reform themselves, the so-called democracies will start functioning as democracies should, a government for all people, not merely of a few people and by a few people. This is not philanthropy. It's about empowering unworthy capitalists to self-correct so that they can be in power longer. What we hope to see is that every capitalist will also be a peopleist and a naturist. Every entrepreneur will respect all people and protect all nature. Now, the solution to this lies in moving from capitalism to peopleism. A new system of governance with three distinct attributes. One, the primacy of profit will give way to predominance of people's issues and respect for nature and its resources. Profit is necessary, but maximization of profit with callous disregard for people and nature will not do. This transformation will happen. It will be enforced by millions of enlightened consumers, employees, women, and youth. Peopleism will evolve an economics that works for all. It will create a surge up development structure and discard the myth of trickle-down policies. Today, the entire social pyramid is inverted. The ease with which corporations and rich individuals can use tax havens is outrageous. Every year, we lose $480 billion through tax havens. And almost 57% of that is facilitated by 4 countries in Europe. UK, through its protectorates of British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and Jersey, and Luxembourg, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Peopleism will stop that. Peopleism will usher in a genuine, unfracturable democracy built on 4 pillars: equity, sustainability, transparency, and justice. It will restore citizenship to every citizen of the country, ensuring equity in opportunity and equality before the law. Now, question everybody asks me, sounds good, but good things don't happen. Why will capitalists change? I believe this change is unstoppable. Looking at the history of civilization, we have witnessed 5 stages of economic progression. Hunter-gatherers economy, starting with Homo erectus 2 million years ago. Agricultural economy, 12,000 years ago. Industrial economy, since the 13th century. Information economy, 50 years ago. Knowledge economy, 25 years ago. Now, this is very important. Each transition to the next stage was a watershed moment in human history, a divider in time and space, beyond which the things that mattered till then will not be the same. A moment when history will cease to determine our future, and we embark on a new trajectory with a new set of norms and values. We are now moving to the next stage of economic progression, wisdom economy. Wisdom will replace knowledge as the key attribute of leaders. What's the difference? Knowledge has neither space nor a provision for ethics. Wisdom is anchored on non-negotiable ethics. Knowledge by itself doesn't seek wisdom. Wisdom continuously seeks knowledge. Knowledge gives you intelligence, the ability to analyze on chosen facts. Truth is not a focus. Wisdom gives you access to your conscience, the ever-present inner light that illumines the truth and guides us to do the right thing. For wisdom leaders, responsible leadership is not just about being held responsible for what we do, but also for what we don't do. Being held responsible for not just we say, but also what we don't say. And finally, lots of questions were raised how these goals will be achieved. Our messages have to reach policymakers and influential people in all nations. For that, we need to be cognizant of certain things. One, individual talent and wisdom is not in short supply. The collective talent and wisdom is scarce. To implement change, the entire leadership team and the entire corporate board need to be on the same plateau with somewhat similar beliefs. One person's convictions have very limited weight unless she is determined or she is the boss. And as change seekers, we must be conscious of the interrelationship of all issues which I said. You can't speak of human rights if you have doubts about diversity. You can never have justice if you don't have gender equality. You can't talk of sustainability if you keep waging wars. To stop wars, you need to win the peace. You can't talk of governance if you spend half your time dressing up fiction as truth. In short, you can't be partially good. You can't be partially responsible. To conclude, we must not underestimate our collective capacity for rapid social transformation. As Professor Karen O'Brien in University of Oslo says, you matter more than you think. The values we believe in individually and collectively can steer systems and cultures. I love the perspective. You matter, I matter, we all matter. Because cognitively, this enhances the human potential to shape our future before it shapes us. I love you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Ravi. This was a great introduction into a discussion. We have now about 20 minutes for, of course, the questions from the audience, but at the same time also for additional comments before we then continue with our program. But while listening to you, it was wonderful to be on one hand, provoked with the optimism from somebody who already is practicing the wisdom economy and the faith in collective, the faith in humanity while not neglecting an individual, which I think it somehow feel through your story as well as through the emerging experiences of eco-civilization might be a challenge to be addressed in this new Peopleism. So maybe this would be the first question for you from my side. How do you see balancing this immense needs of individuals with the needs of collective? And when I say collective, I mean planet as well. Have you put some more deeper thoughts into it?
Let's look at when a child is born. A child knows no hatred. He loves sharing everything with everyone, and he is totally transparent. What happens when they grow up? Hatred comes in, selfishness comes in,
Mm.
and you need to hide everything. Now, every human being is born perfect. I think I have emphasized the importance of 2 billion mothers in the world
Mm.
to raise their children and inculcate these values. And this will happen. For me, gender equality is the most important unfinished agenda of this century. Only when every woman is empowered will the humanity be empowered. So I reckon that this will come about because we are today at an hour which is darkest, and it's the hour darkest before dawn.
Mm.
The the social media which the perpetrators of today's scenario are using is also available to victims of this. Now, uh, I am often asked this question that the biggest problem we have today is the social media gives only fiction. It's all lies. No truth comes out. How do we get the news? And my answer to that is you are not the only one saying it. The whole world is worried. So when this happens, what the two sorts of solutions will emerge. Either one of the big five players will change, and they will discover they have the whole world at their command, and the other four will follow. Or if they don't, for how long we'll see, the AI knowledge is now getting commoditized. We have seen what happened in DeepSeek. So within short time, I foresee that the truth media will start emerging. So I think, look at Amazon, for example. They treat their labor so badly. It needs 1 week of consumers in one state of the United States to say we will not buy Amazon. And the thing will change overnight. You remember what happened in Nike days? They had a slogan, do it.
Just do it.
And in a small city in Indonesia where they used to source their product, the people were living in slums and paid pittance wages, and Nike was making all the money. They put out a slogan, don't do it, and showed the slums photographs. And within 48 hours, the chairman of Nike decided we change. So I think the change is going to happen.
Hmm. Oh, this was a great example at the end, Ravi, because the leader responded to the message of the
Yeah.
people. Often we see that leaders don't respond to the message of the masses, but they actually punish them. And we see that in political sense. We see that in even in within companies. Often unions are seen as a huge obstacle. So many would try to do everything they can not to make their action possible. So, any ideas and thoughts on what really, based on your experiences, also being one of CEOs of one of the largest companies in the world, um, how many leaders have this emotional capacity? How many leaders have this empathy that can respond to the needs of the collective? Did we go too far in that respect, or can we still count that leaders that are already today in place have this emotional capacity, have this empathy insight to be able to understand the systemic immense importance of people and nature to be part of the equation?
Uh, yes, I think this is a very practical issue. Uh, who will tie the opening knot or untie the opening knot and
Mm.
change? But I think we are seeing a lot of people changing. The question is that such examples, one can count on maybe hands of 4 or 5 people. They are so few. But they have proven that it's possible to do good and do well.
Mm,
The question which I am focusing, I have two focuses. In fact, that's my life's mission now.
mm,
Firstly, I believe that the politicians and business which are together to create what's cronyism and the nexus is possible only because businessmen have money which they give it to them to fight the elections. And then they have to pay back at a multiple rate.
mm,
Now, our first focus of change is the business leaders. They are the most powerful body of decision makers who hold in their hand, they think they hold in their hand, the future destiny of humanity. No, they don't know that history is never made by those at the top. History is created by people, the masses.
mm,
And the masses have reached the limit, as I have explained briefly and given far more examples in the book. And when that happens, people change. Now, today, we are perhaps the first generation in human race to know that we are moving to a new economy, wisdom economy. Normally, people don't know. Nobody in the agricultural economy envisaged that the landlords of today will be the beggars of tomorrow because the owners of machinery and commerce suddenly took over, but it took a century to do so. Today, things happen far too fast. So, in my book, I don't blame anybody for what they have done till now. I am saying them, you want to be in power longer, then you have the ability to transform, and people will start loving you. Hey, look at that guy, he changed himself. I mean, I think that a good example is Bill Gates. You may not agree with in fact, we don't agree with everything what he did as chairman of Microsoft. He created the new rules of monopoly, which still are followed by everybody else, but he changed eventually. And he created a new culture that uh, you put an end to your greed. Warren Buffett, for that matter, has given away 97% of his wealth.
mm.
And here we have today countries which are saying, no, 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 we can't afford to give help to anybody else. All aid is stopped. So these things can't continue. So people will rise and it will happen sooner. So I believe that we have to work with the whole leadership team of a corporate board.
Mm.
When somebody wants me to address a meeting of executive directors, non-executive directors of various companies, I don't do that anymore. I want the entire leadership team to be present, and I
Mm.
want a discussion with them.
Mm.
And
Yes.
either I'll convince them that I don't expect to convince everybody, but I think we need to create the catalysts. The more the catalyst, the more people will change.
Ravi, this is very encouraging news, and I'm with you on that one. I stay very optimistic. Yet here is another challenge, okay? Equally, that you presented well the conditions for populism to take place. We see that the global corporations are pushing and pushing and pushing to even replace the states, try to make them irrelevant through all their interventions in financing and everything. They're really making them basically look irrelevant. And they want to prove that they're the ones who have the golden stick to lead the world. I mean, how do you see this kind of uh, tension that will continue to grow? People awakening up, trying
Yes.
to deliver something that is worth of living on this planet Earth, and on the other side, this greediness, this push for even higher level of concentration, and taking over the world basically by few corporates at the top.
Well, I asked them very simply that, look, what is your mission in life? To be wealthy or wealthy and happy?
Mm.
I let them think. I don't speak for a long time.
Mm.
And eventually they discuss, we want to be wealthy and happy.
Mm.
And then I give them a simple quote. If you want to be happy for an hour, have a nap. If you want to be happy for a day, go and play a game of golf or fishing or soccer.
Mm.
If you want to be happy for a few years, then you win a lottery. But if you want a lifetime of happiness, that only comes through making others happy.
Very straightforward, very clear. And we have some really good questions here in the audience as well. So, Marina, would you like to go live and ask yourself? Just
Hey,
an
can we move the slide so that I can see everybody
yes,
also?
I will.
Everybody can see everybody.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Go
Hello.
ahead.
My
Hello.
name is Marina, Ecocivilisation Russia, live in cities Earth, so many roles. Thank you so much for this absolutely fantastic presentation, so uplifting and so thought-provoking. So my question is, how can we, each of us, support and encourage this transition from the knowledge-based economy to the wisdom economy? I understand that this sort of transition in terms of agricultural age to industrial age to informational age, it requires centuries. So what can be done in order to encourage this transition to make happen faster? And you also mentioned the difference between knowledge and wisdom, that wisdom includes the non-negotiable ethics basics. So what are these basics and how we can support these basics in our everyday life in order to make this transition into wisdom happen as in our lives, not in the lives of our children and grandchildren. Thank you so much for your answer.
I had a New Year message earlier when I mentioned that peopleism will have 8 non-negotiable coexistent commitments. Respect for human rights, respect for nature, media must portray truth, genuine gender equality, a framework of benevolent governance, economics that works for all, justice with transparency, and to stop wars, we must win the peace. Only peace can end wars. Wars continue till everybody loses. So these are the 8 principles. And what happens is the bad news spreads faster than good news. How many countries in the last 12 months have thrown away oligarchs and autocrats who were in power for long? We saw Bangladesh, we saw South Africa, we saw Colombia, South America, like 2 other nations, Sudan, we've seen. So this is happening quietly. But just because it hasn't happened in USA doesn't mean the rest of the world is in the same boat. Sometime people will realize, in fact, more Americans will realize soon, hey, why are we hitting into our own feet all the time? And how long can we stand like this? So I think we should take courage from the good things that are happening in the world. And there are plenty of them. In every domain you can see them. In any case, Charles Darwin theory of survival of the fittest is now going to be replaced by survival of the wisest. Darwin's theory, when he said the fittest, it meant in those days, relevant to the conditions then prevailing, it was the ability to reproduce and survive. because you can adequate food. So it must be in line with the carrying capacity of the planet and your ability to reproduce. Today, the carrying capacity of the planet has gone, finished. We'll have a water shortage, food shortage, unlivable cities, I mean, anything. How can people be happy? That's why we keep them busy spending all their time on screens. So survival of the wisest will emerge, and we will see that we'll see wiser leaders. In the small countries, it's already happening. In the big countries, it will happen. Europe is ahead of others. I think the social consciousness in Europe is the biggest hope people elsewhere can have.
Thank you very much for this very rich response as well. We have another comment and question from Ilgar from Azerbaijan. Would you like to come forward and read it yourself, or would you like me to read it? Okay, I guess because some of the people don't want to be on the screen. So here you go. What do you consider the fundamental basis of leadership in transitioning from capitalism to a people-centered paradigm? So the fundamental basis of leadership, what should that be?
How do we define a leader?
Yes, indeed.
A leader is a person whose actions or inactions determine the lives and livelihoods of several people around her, directly or indirectly. Now, a leader is so devoted and dedicated to his desire for more wealth that he doesn't see the impact of his actions. He doesn't see how lives and livelihoods are being destroyed by multiple things he does. Now, the people I'm seeing are learning about it. You see, in fact, everybody knows that we have 1 million movements all around the world in every country. They say, oh, this is enough. But this time we will not see a revolution like the Glorious Revolution or the French Revolution. We'll bring the corporations down, as I said, and consumers will do it. Generation Z will do it. The new media will do it. The women will do it.
Great. And here a thought came forward while listening to you and also listening to the questions. Do you think that there is a lot of knowledge and wisdom that we don't really know about? So it's not only about what we don't know that we don't know, but also what we don't know that we know.
Knowledge is acquired. Wisdom is discovered. Knowledge comes from outside. Wisdom comes from within. There are umpteen examples of millions of people who can't read and write, but they are the wisest people in the civilization. How many people one can give examples of? We read their stories and we read their quotes and quote them, but we don't know that they were illiterate. They only said these things. So, wisdom acquires knowledge, which is relevant. But what happened today is that our thirst for knowledge is helping us to acquire irrelevant and unnecessary knowledge. So we don't see the reality, we don't ask the questions, and we can't make the choices. I've created the 7 rules of choice in the universe today. How do you make choices? And people don't realize that in the quantum world we live in, a choice made by someone we don't know in a country we don't know can impact us and our lives disproportionately. So this interdependence, I've highlighted 4 principles in one of my concluding chapters, that you have to have the principle of life, you have to have the principle of awakening, the principle of interdependence of the world, and the principle of gratitude. We take for granted that the food we get, we deserve because we have the money. But the millions of farmers are producing that food. We go around and open our wallet and buy things we need, but the farmers and the workers who produce those things, where is our gratitude for them? It is coming.
Mm. Thank you very much. And by the end of this part of the session, I cannot but provoke Alexander. He shared few messages, but he was quite quiet. But Alexander, I would love to hear your response, and maybe with that, we'll then ask Ravi also to share his final thoughts of this session. Please go ahead, Alexander.
Thank you so much. What an important and timely set of considerations we are engaged in here. And we are here. The fact that we're doing this together, this is not one person telling us what to do. We're involved in a conversation, a dialogue. And Ravi, what an amazing presentation. But what I think fantastic is that you embody this. I don't know you from before. I've come across your work, but I see you. And it's clear that you embody this way of being in your kindness and your gentleness and your way of being. And I think this is key to our coherence in our expressions. Let me just mention a couple of things that might fit in here. The leadership that you're talking about, Ravi and Violetta, that you have framed for us so fantastically, my sense is that needs to be complemented by a matching competency in followership. And this followership is not something that is very much talked about, but followership is an art, just like leadership. And it requires a presence and an ability to support and engage and participate. So I see followership as being very important in this engagement as well. And I also wanted just to emphasize the role of nature, that nature is one of the players in this. Now, you touched on this, Ravi, but I do believe that in terms of the kind of the ethical guidance that Marina was talking about and calling forth, nature is the guide. And we are nature. To be able to say, oh, nature out there is a mistake, but to be able to recognize our integral part in and of this bigger narrative, and then to make sure that our part in that narrative is in harmony with the dynamics and flows of nature. Darwinism has been transcended, so it is not about the survival of the fittest. I entirely agree with you, Ravi. It's survival of the wisest. And as I mentioned, Jonas Salk wrote a beautiful book with that title already in 1973. And finally, just to say, yes, peace. But it's not the kind of peace that is rest in peace, the nothingness, right? This is an active, thriving, vibrant peace. It's a celebration. Yes. Peace is not just the absence of war, as we know. It is an equally powerful and diametrically opposed type of way of being and force and presence. And this takes me to this idea of entanglement that you were mentioning from the quantum world. I'll put a reference here when I finish sharing, but interdependence. I love this concept, and Violetta and some of you know this also, comes from Theodore Holmes Nelson, also in the 1970s. He came up with the word intertwinglement, which I love, because wonderful. It's not just entanglement. Entanglement is what happens to my beard in the morning, and then I have to straighten it out, But intertwinglement is beautiful. It has magic in it. And this is also this part of the celebration and the magic of our interbeing. So just wanted to share what you've inspired with me, Ravi and Violetta and my friends here. This is the way we do it together. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you,
brilliant
Alexander. Yes,
input.
and Ravi, please, this is your final word is yours. So how would you wrap up this dialogue and what you've heard? And if there was any new sort of message that also resonated with you, please share that as well.
Well, actually, I'm inspired by Alexander's the words, and where I see hope in it is that I believe quality of leadership is never static. Every day, either it improves or it deteriorates. We are today, and this is what gives me hope, the leaders of today are deteriorating in their leadership ability every day. And I'm not the only one who is thinking. The masses are believing they were all right. We elected them. We didn't resent their being in power for so long. Why have they gone mad now? They don't care about us. They don't look at us. Now, it can't be that the masses will stay. Now, meanwhile, the masses are improving in followership. And improved followership creates new leaders. I mean, it's basically, I mean, the followership, when it become, I would say, inspired, they start resenting against the existing leader, and then a leader among them emerges. And we are going through that stage now. The new leaders that will be elected will not necessarily be charismatic. Film stars are not required to be leaders. They can't be leaders of countries. So, unless they're wise. I mean, I'm sorry, I think it's a wrong comment to make. If they are wise, then they're very good. Then they have, some of them are very wise. So I think as a follower, I think each of us needs to seek out our own personal North Star, a set of non-negotiable convictions, and embark on a relentless quest on how can I serve others better. If I'm a leader, how can I lead better? If I'm a doer, how can I do better? The quality of excellence gives one disproportionate confidence to do even better things. And that's what creates leaders. So I think the Gen Z, which is, I mean, 50% of the 45% or 47% of global population that earns less than $6.85 a day are finding it difficult to live, and Europe has a large proportion of them. So I think they'll find the ways. I'm not going to tell them what the ways are, but they will make sure the change comes. Let's be on the alert. Let's continue doing what we do. Let's create an environment. They inspire each other and we get inspired by them. Their actions are very empowering for us, actually. Thank you very much.